Do you know that you are harming yourself? Do you know that? Yes, I do. I know. Despite that, I kept on doing that. It's impossible to explain for people that have never been addicted.
I'm your host, Sha Hurley. Each week, I invite a conscious leader in tech, sales, and beyond to share their inner journey, how they overcome obstacles, how they achieve success while staying true to themselves, and above all, what makes them human beings. I hope those authentic conversations serve as an inspiration for you as you continue your own inner journey of self-discovery, healing, and mastery. Hi, Luca. Welcome to the show. I was so excited about this conversation. You and I connected in a Google, I think after I gave a workshop on self-mastery or shadow work, energy leadership, sort of that area. And then you and I connected, and immediately I feel very connected to you just by how authentic you are. And then so after the layoff, I feel like I really wanted to stay connected with you. And then you come to our house and, the conversation that we had, that just got me to think more about my past experiences working in the corporate, especially when you mentioned about how we're supposed to treat health the same way how we treat our financial situation, meaning like we don't wait till things get really bad to deal with it. And then rather we needed to really start to take care of it early. So that got me to think about my time when I was not taking care of my health. I was, emotionally binge eating. I was not working out. And then so you and I connected on a deeper level. And I think it might be a good conversation to just to chat about it. There might be other people resonate or wanted you to hear how your journey, how your inner journey evolved over the years. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Sha. And thanks for giving me this opportunity. Indeed, we connected talking about energy level, how we approach people and situation, and we got the chance to stay in touch, and I'm so grateful for that. And absolutely, I try to be an open book. So wherever the conversation goes, hopefully I can support or provide my perspective or even support others to think about it. To your point, I think I remember the exact moment when I told you, you cannot take care of your health where you are unhealthy, something like this. So in the same thing that you cannot save money when you are broke, right? So that was, I think, the specific metaphor. And I really think that in general, health at 360 degrees, which is physical health, mental health, and everything health related, I think you should have a strong core, and you need to nurture and take care of every single day.
I love that. It's such a journey. I realize maybe let's start with an intro. I feel like we might just dive right into the topic. I do wanted to have you introduce yourself in a way that's unique because you're such a unique human being. You're from Italy and you're traveling around the world. Besides your job on Google, you also coach and you do some other stuff too. So maybe I'll just have you introduce yourself. Then we'll go back to the topic and dive right in. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Yes. So, my name is Luca. I'm, yes, indeed Italian. I live and work in California, San Francisco Bay Area. I work for a tech company, corporation, multinational, whatever you want to call it. And I do sales, strat ops role there. I lead a team. And then beyond that, I am a certified coach. I'm not practicing as a standalone activity yet, but who knows what the future has for me. I love traveling. A few years ago, I took 3 months sabbatical to travel the world despite the pandemic. And I love the exploration part. I love the getting in touch with nature, with local culture, with people. My motto was take life as it comes, because you never know what comes ahead of you, and just enjoy the moment, live the flow. And I think that's it in terms of probably an introduction about myself. I love meditation, mindfulness, even though sometimes I don't practice constantly, guilty as charged. I really care about people, about humanity, about connectedness. I think this is what makes us really different in general, really unique.
Okay, before we dive into the conversation, because it might get dark as we continue the conversation, because we might trace back to our childhood. What's your favorite food?
Oh my God. I'm Italian. I am biased. No pineapple on pizza. Just say that. I love pizza. I love pasta. I cannot pick like what kind of pizza, what kind of pasta, because all of them are unique.
Oh, I love that. It's so funny you're talking about they're all unique. To me, they're all the same. Like pasta, and then they're just like, to me, they're all the same.
I
But you're
know, I
Italian.
know. Exactly. That's why I'm picky or biased. But this doesn't mean that I always go for Italian food. Absolutely not. When I travel, I love trying everything local as much as I can. So obviously, if I am in my domain, I would go for Italian, I would say, for daily food. But I love experiencing other stuff as well.
I love that. Let's talk about the emotional eating. You and I chatted about how I think in this part of the journey you and I both shared. Because when you're talking about how you sometimes order food on DoorDash or Uber Eats and multiple times, and I was like, well, yeah, I did that when I was first, started to work. I got really stressed out. I didn't even know how much food I ordered, because sometimes I order food for myself and then the restaurant would give me like 3 pair of chopsticks or 4 pair of chopsticks, thinking that was the food was for like, multiple people. And that was the time when I realized I was really using food to handle my stress. But what about you? When did you realize you're emotionally, like eating or using food as a way to handle stress?
Well, probably honestly, when I realized that completely, if you ask me about, okay, when do you develop deep awareness about that, probably was honestly only recently. This is like where I started realizing that, oh, what are you are doing? What are you doing every day? It does happen honestly, I think throughout all my life, since when I was a kid, and probably we can touch later on that. Overall, I think you mentioned something. It's a way to handle stress. I don't know if for me is exactly that only, or it's just a way to feel a void, which can be a void in emotion, a void in satisfaction. That's why it can touch on personal relationship like family or friendship. When there's something going on there, I know that mentally, that's why for me, food eating is not an isolated issue. You can think, at least for me, again, I don't want to say everything that I'm saying here is my own experience. For me, so it cannot be disjoined from your mental health. I developed awareness like a few months ago, I think, when I was talking to my therapist saying, look, I really think that I have a food disorder, because it's like, this is not okay. I know that it's not okay. I know that it's not okay for me to keep ordering food on DoorDash. Actually, not I don't want to do advertising, but I use caviar. I like caviar more than DoorDash. Caviar was acquired, I think, by DoorDash at some point, but I use that. I never use DoorDash. And also, I mean, even the way, obviously, every company needs to make money. Even the way they push you to order food, there are notifications. I try to remove all the notifications, but they really tease you, right? But putting that aside, I realized that every day I was ordering food, not because I was hungry, because I needed to fill up a void that I had. This void was caused, and it's still caused every day, or not every day, but when it happens, usually for emotion related to family or friendship, when things they generate some frustration in me, or the work situation, when things don't play out as intended. So I develop awareness only now, but I've been doing that for basically many, many years. That's why it goes back to probably when I was, when I was a kid. I think I have an intention to do something. I'm intentional. I can do that. And this is the same thing that I did a few weeks ago. But then a nice thing, what happened yesterday? Yesterday, I ordered some food. I was not hungry. And I observed myself while doing that. And I knew exactly why I was doing that. So awareness, to your point, is for sure the first step, but it's not enough. You might need to have a commitment with yourself, buy in with yourself to move forward. And one friend of mine, we used to live here in the Bay Area, but then he moved to the East Coast. What he told me is that, well, you will never get rid of your triggers. Triggers are always been there. You can just learn how to better handle them. And actually, this is right. It's like things go in cycles. So they can come back. And I need to be stronger and better and handling them, because they will happen. And you don't control, you can't control. You can't avoid them from happening. You can't prevent them from happening. You can just basically handle them, and you can just train yourself to handle them.
And we're really talking about breaking the cycle or breaking the pattern, which is really difficult, especially when the consequences of eating the food is not as bad. It's not like, it's not like you're taking drugs, because that consequence is way different. You're talking about, if you're talking about, I don't smoke, but for people who smoke, you can easily pull different kind of data points and say, if you smoke and it causes different kind of like non-cancer, whatever, then that's more scary.
Unfortunately, the consequences, they're not immediate. You don't perceive, because sometimes people still associate the fact that you are overeating, or I gained some weight, or I look worse, or people associate it to aesthetics. I don't think that it's about aesthetics. I think it's about health. If you keep eating as I was eating, and usually I order carbs, like salty carbs, because I just like, I don't know, pizza or pasta or burgers is technically, well, it shouldn't be carb, but if you don't have fries and things like that, right? And this is like to get that sense of fulfillment, of satisfaction. The point is that the consequences, unfortunately, they will be there. They will be because your vitals will start suffering. Your body will be heavier. It might be, if you're really overweight, it might be tough to walk. Your liver start getting fat, and this is really a concern from a doctor. The thing is that you don't really check this thing immediately. You don't experience them. You don't have like an immediate check saying, oh, what you are doing is bad. And also, again, I'm not a biologist or a doctor or whatever, but technically, our body is not supposed to overeat in general. We're supposed to, let's say that in a car, you cannot put more gas versus more than the tank size itself. And ideally, this is the same thing that should be for us. Is we should treat our body like as an engine that needs like some fuel to go on, to keep going.
I think that's a really good point, especially the impact that's accumulated over a period of time. And I remember the time when I was really stressed out. So, this is a personal topic, the reason for a different person to overeat or, addicted to different food is different based on their own history and beliefs. For me, it was really a way to handle stress. It just makes me feel like, or make me feel like I'm in control of certain things. Like, if I can order all the food in the world that I wanted to eat, to me, it was really spicy food and not healthy for my stomach and all. And I feel like a certain level of controlling, like I'm able to control the food I can take in my body and how much I want to take in there. Doesn't matter if it's healthy for me or not. And I remember I had a stomach cancer scare. I thought I had a stomach cancer. I actually went for endoscopy, and then it was really scary. And now because of that, I went down retreats. I started to detox and then do all the work. Now I pay a lot of attention to my diet. We don't order food. Even though Jake, my husband, works on Uber and we do get free Uber Eats credits, it's really tempting sometimes for us. But I do feel way healthier. Like my energy level is higher and my mood is better too. And I notice the differences. So sometimes I would like talk to myself like, hey, Sha, like your life will be different if you realize this back then. But that was in the past. It's no way for me to just self-criticize, it doesn't help. For you, you mentioned about this connection to your childhood, your parents owning a restaurant and eating certain food make you feel certain way. If you talk about the void, it's almost the emotional void that you're referring to. Is that right? Or something else, some different kind of void you're talking about?
No, it is exactly that. It's not like it is that. It's emotional void. So for me, I think two main themes: abandonment and disappointment. And this related to, when I was a kid, there was this thing that eventually I grew over it, but I have a older brother, and when I was a kid, I really thought that my parents were caring about him more than they would care about myself. They care about myself. So I had this feeling of abandonment. And that when you have these feelings, you always try to look for proofs that can support your hypothesis. And obviously I was finding all these proofs and things like that. And this was like something that really, characterized my life. And this is like something that unfortunately or fortunately, fortunately, if you're able to handle it, but this is something in my baggage, in my experience baggage. No matter what is there. So it might come up, and disappointment as well. Disappointment is kind of related and linked to abandonment per se. When I am like, it's a matter of when you are disappointed by one person or or some behaviors or some situations and things like that are kind of different versus what you were told or things like that. So for me, and again, when I was a kid, obviously I was blaming my parents per se because I was not understanding all of this dynamic. Now I don't blame them absolutely. Again, I'm not a parent myself. I don't know at least now what this means overall, but for sure they didn't have absolutely any bad intention to let me perceive that feeling. There were other reasons that eventually they adopted a different behavior with my brother versus myself. And again, he's not much older, but he's like 20 years older than me. So we were not really kind of the same age. Now everything is fine, but still that trigger, that thing of feeling excluded, feeling abandoned, or feeling disappointed, it might come every now and then. And I think that I use the same technique to face that feeling. And the same technique is to eat junk food. And another important thing, when I order food, when I order caviar, I can even order a salad. I know many great salad places. I can still adopt the same behavior, but order something healthier. The thing is that in that moment, it's like, and again, I don't know, you mentioned before, like drug addiction, it can be a prescription drug, or even if you like, especially we live in the Bay Area, the situation on the street might not be the best, but you heard a lot about the problem of drug addiction, of the opioid crisis and things like that, right? I don't really know what this means per se, but on that regard myself, but I know what it means for food. If at the beginning I try to fill up the void for abandonment, for disappointment, for exclusion, things like that, at a certain point, it becomes kind of like a coping mechanism. For me, it was a way to find relief. And it's crazy because I really know, if you ask me, but do you know that you are harming yourself? Do you know that? Yes, I do. I know. Despite that, I kept on doing that. It's impossible to explain for people that have never been addicted. I read a lot of articles in general because I mentioned I love humanity in general, and I'm a curious person. So sometimes I read articles about human behaviors overall. It probably, I don't know, it's the same for people that are addicted to, gambling, right? That even though they know that they cannot gamble more than the money they gain every month, but they still do that because at a certain point, it becomes something that is really something medical that you need to address. I was able in my life there were moments where I was too focused on that and I was not able to stop. If I look at my track record for DoorDash or actually Caviar, whatever, I feel ashamed. I feel really ashamed to see the orders, and sometimes 2 orders per day or 2 orders one after the other, because I was like, I order pizza, but this place does have ice cream, because at a certain point when it became too much, I was also adding sugar there. And also another thing, and you mentioned that your husband works at Uber. Now it's crazy. I try to remove the app from my phone. Why is that? Because I say, okay, I removed the app, so the cost of reinstalling the app is going to be higher than my eagerness to have food. So I won't install them again. Actually, now it's a matter of seconds. Everything is saved in your Android or in an iPhone. So you reinstall the app, you just click, and everything is already there. The login, you don't need to remember the password. You don't need to recover the password. Everything is there. Obviously, the companies, the tech companies, whatever, they do for their own reason. That's absolutely right. I mean, according to the balance sheet and the income statement, whatever. Obviously, this poses like a risk situation on the people that have issues, because there is no limit. ideally, and probably this is a request for people working on Uber Eats or on DoorDash or Caviar, just do something good. If people are addicted, they will keep ordering food. You won't go broke for addicted people. But put a disclaimer if you see that people are ordering too much. At least you solicit some thought in the people that are ordering. And again, you won't go broke. You won't go bankrupt for people that probably once in a while don't order in a row because of they see the disclaimer. But this would be something that it would help humanity overall.
I really love that. It's almost like, like sometimes you go to the store, you buy cigarettes, and then there's labels on the counter saying if you're pregnant, you're not supposed to smoking. Similar to that, but like, Uber Eats, yesterday I just ordered something, and then now they have the bundling services. Basically, like after you order something, and then they give you 10 minutes to decide if you want to bundle something else. And normally those bundle services are ice cream or, like bubble tea or like whatever that just have a lot of sugar in there. And I ended up ordering those stuff. I'm like, oh wow, like I already feel bad about ordering those spicy food for myself. And then I'm have to worry, blame myself for ordering additional stuff. It's kind of interesting conversation. It's not just about food addiction anymore. It also goes back to like, how do we create technology and business consciously? Like, we need to make more revenue for sure, but like we are also human beings. How do we balance that? Like yesterday, I was literally talking to, I think he was a Googler and now he's VP of technology in a company. He and I are just talking about potentially record another episode, the connection between human desire and AI, because he was recently being asked to come up with the ML machine learning AI model to get people to use the social media even more. So he declined. He said, I know, right? And he's like, I already spent a lot of time on Instagram, like I'm not supposed to. And so it's like one way we as human beings are fighting our own battle, connecting to our childhood story, our own wound. But one way the technology is also not helping us to like, it's almost like lures, like, hey, come, eat more unhealthy food. It makes things more difficult. But let's talk about your stories. I started to dive a little bit deeper into the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives. Sometimes the stories help us. Sometimes they free us. Sometimes they limited us. So the story you tell yourself about like the abandonment, your brother, by the way, almost makes me feel like I want to meet with your brother. Like, what's the story on your brother's side? He might tell a different story. So
he's privileged. He was spoiled by my parents. So no, actually, I have a good relationship with my brother. We don't talk that much. We are completely different people, personality wise. I think I never blame my brother for this. For me, it was like, the condition is just, my parents were behaving in a given way with him. And now still today, I made fun of my parents. Oh, my brother is acting this way because you educated him this way. So eventually it's on you. And they start laughing at it because they know that they were kind of, and also, look, he was the first kid. We are two, but he was also the first grandchild of my maternal grandparents. And we kind of grew up with them. We are now 9 cousins from them, and he was the first one. So and he was also the first nephew of many of my uncles on their side. So he was spoiled all over because he was just the first kid in the family, right? And again, nothing bad about that. But about me, the point is that you don't realize, and that's why I think being a parent again must be probably the toughest job, the toughest role actually, because it's not even a job where you get a salary and say, okay, whatever, I get a salary, I suffer that. But it's a role. It's just the toughest role that you can have in life because you don't know what you do if it's going to be perceived and taken the right way. And sometimes you do things that are, again, you had no intention to do something evil or not evil, but like something bad. But then the perception is completely opposite. I don't think that my parents love my brother more than me or vice versa. Absolutely not. But the point is that you can't explain that to a kid. You just can't. And then also talking about abandonment, when I was 10 years old, due to some personal reasons, my parents had to So I don't go all the details because otherwise it would take 3 hours. But they left me and my brother in Sicily with my grandparents, and they went to Germany to open up a restaurant because they already had experience with Germany. The economic situation in Italy was not great, so they wanted to work on it for a better future for me and my brother. And I'm so grateful to them for doing that. However, a 10 years old kid can't understand that, despite the fact that, oh, you're acting really as a mature person, you look like older than your age, you don't care. You have 10 years old, you like to spend the time with your schoolmate, you like to do your experience, to play with them and things like that. It took me a while. I mean, I'm happy because I am, what I mentioned before, I am unique. I'm unique with my experience. But the point is that my parents eventually, they left me officially. They left me because they went to Germany. Obviously, we were seeing each other every couple of months. I used to spend summer with them, whatever. But officially, on paper, they left me. So eventually, it was a matter of self-worth, right? I'm not enough for my parents to take care of me, to spend time with me. Again, probably they wouldn't have been able to support me, to support my studies, and probably we wouldn't have been here, Shah, talking to each other, talking about food, binge eating, relationship with food, and abandonment. And that's why I will always be grateful to my dad in premise, to my dad first, and then my mom. But it was a matter of, I am not enough to deserve the love of my parents. And unfortunately, this kind of mechanism, if I don't watch out, it comes all the time. I'm not enough to have that particular role in the team. I'm not enough to be leading that specific project. Or I was told one thing, but eventually you're doing another thing, which eventually is like, I had the feeling when I was a kid, when I was a few years old, like 6, 7, 8 years old, I had the feeling, oh, my parents, they love my brother more than me, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually when I was 10 years old, they left me and my brother, all of us, but my brother was older. It was, again, 17, 18. I was still a kid. So it was like, oh, I'm not spending my kid life with my family. So when I talk about like my childhood this way, or when I associate even my food behavior sometimes, I always have like, let's say, epiphany moments where I discover more and more about myself. And this is the same that is happening now. It's just like, I mean, eating food is something, it's bad. You're damaging your health. I'm asthmatic personally. So if I am a lot of like overweight, I can really have more difficult, well, not too much, but like difficulties in breathing, or maybe tougher to walk and things like that. I don't care about that aspect, even though I am totally aware. I'm aware that I need to go to do to do cloth shopping again. The point is that I deserve to have some consolation, let's say, and that consolation for me is food, to deal with those feelings that, again, happened the first time when I was a kid. And the point is that my mind is used to that. My mind as a benchmark, as an history. And my mind can assume, oh, this is happening again. It's just an assumption that it's happening again and again and again.
Yeah, I think it's a good awareness, because I think a lot of people, like you're saying, you only have this awareness recently that you use food to fill that void instead of fill the void. Earlier, we're talking about the emotional void, but now we're diving a little bit deeper. It's actually this feeling of I'm not good enough to get my parents to love me. And I think this kind of feeling, I feel like it's being shared among many of us. Like I had this feeling, my parents, they put me in boarding school when I was 7. So, and my grandparents came to visit me in boarding school. And then they were joking about how I look like a homeless child. I mean, even like I was 7, like, I had to wash my own clothes at the time. Like, what would you expect? Like me dressing like a doll? Like, no, that's not me. And so they actually picked me up and to stay with them. But that the feeling of like, I'm not good enough for my parents to give me that attention. I'm the only child. Supposedly, I would have all the love from them, But, and so in that time, I also tell myself stories about how if I get good grades, if I get to top 3 in school, and because my mom would be really happy every time when I get to like really, top 10, top 3 in school, she'll just laugh and happy and so proud. And then I remember that feeling. So I started to like really push myself to work really hard just to make her happy, regardless if I was happy or not. But then realizing in the corporate world, like you're talking about changing roles and changing teams and doing a lot of things to feel that feeling of I'm enough, I deserve. After the layoff, I think the feeling hit me even deeper because there's no system for me to feel that void anymore. Like, I couldn't, in the corporate system, you can go for a promo, you can get peer bonuses and all that stuff to make you feel like you're doing something that's worth, And then, so after the layoff, I was like, I don't know like how to fill that void. And I started to actually, for me, it's a hot pot, like Chinese spicy hot pot. And so I would go eat hot pot with my husband. And then he started to make comments on, are you addicted to hot pot? Because it's not healthy for you. I was very defensive at that time. I'm like, no, what do you mean? Like, this is me being homesick. I was saying like I was being homesick. When you came to our house, when you and I are talking about like, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's not. Because I think there's part of me feel shamed to even talk about this topic. Like, like I didn't want to even share with the people I have this addiction to food to handle my stress and all that stuff. Like when you and I openly shared about this, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one who have this issue.
But also, Shad, the other point is that for the people that are listening or watching us, it was the second time we met. Yes. Literally the second time.
Yes.
Probably we exchanged some messages on,
yes.
I don't know, on Instagram where we were organizing, but that's it. The thing is that today, probably for sure in the Western society, I don't want to say globally, but in the Western society or in the corporate world, you are not allowed to be weak.
Yes.
Unless you plan to be weak. Yeah, I say that because now.
What do you mean? Hold on. What do you mean by saying plan to be weak?
Well, and this is sad, but actually, over the last few years, the keywords in the corporate world are resilience, vulnerability, and things like that. Mm. So you need to show that you are vulnerable sometimes in order to be a great leader. So the result is that there are people that they show some personal thing just to show that they are vulnerable, but they show in such cold and detached way that is so horrible. That's why I think that people should be authentic. If you feel like sharing something, just do that, but don't be forced to share because you need to appear vulnerable or thanks for your vulnerability. Absolutely not. I don't share things like just to show whatever vulnerable. Yeah. If I share something, I'd like to be authentic. And that's why when I welcome the idea of being a guest of your podcast overall, because we are all humans. 3, 4, 5 or 6 out of 10 people that will listen to your podcast or will watch the video, they sometimes, probably not in a constant way, whatever, they have done some binge eating or similar things, or they had other ways to handle like emotional distress. A friend of mine at some point, he told me, and I don't even think this was even possible, that he was addicted to porn. I say, how can it be? It just, and actually can be. And if you look online, probably, I mean, you will find things. And it's the same as gambling. So even if we extract from food addiction, we can come to every addiction. Why we're using an addiction, even social network, the fact that you spend like 3-4 hours scrolling your Instagram, that is never ending. It's on purpose that it's never ending. All the tech companies, they do things to grab our attention. Today is like the goal of grabbing attention from people. All the notification, you would like to grab the attention, to spend time in their platform, to profiling you and to suggest you the next best product that you would buy, right? So it's the battle of attention. And again, if we think about that, especially today in the way we live, most of us live a city life. We are so detached from nature. Nature is what sometimes makes us human, allow us to get in touch with our inner self. Today, most of us, they do a corporate job or a desk job or we are still focused on spending time behind the screen. So already we are prone to more detachment from world overall. If we add all the distress, the emotional distress that can happen due to many reasons, and the pandemic was the biggest example of that, where we couldn't even go out from our houses for some time because of all the risk. So it's a matter of, okay, how I can manage all the tension that I develop inside myself, all the emotions that I develop inside myself. In my case, it was, again, something that developed in, I know that in our coaching world, we talk about the gremlin, right? Mm-hmm. The voice behind you that tells you, oh, you're not enough and will never be enough and things like that. Usually, as you know as well, it develops when you're a kid. You're between 7 and 12 years of age. And for me, that's the thing that will come all the time. For other people, can be something else, right? And then most of the case, I handled that with food. In the past, I handled that fighting with my friends, even with no reason, blaming them for something that I was not enough for or whatever. Now it's food. For other people, can be something else. Can be drug. Some people go to the doctor to have prescribe some drugs to find relief and things like that. But going back to the point of how to handle with that, I think it's more about find a balance among all the different inputs that we have in today's society.
Wow, you mentioned so many good stuff. The first thing I wanted to respond is whether one needs to be showing up as an authentic person, or, you're mentioning how some people in the corporate world or outside of corporate world should show up to be, pretend to be vulnerable and share some of their stories, personal stories, so they can build a personal or their personal branding as a leader who can be vulnerable about certain things. And the second case is almost to me, it's like a manipulation. It's almost like a manipulation tactic. You do certain things and then create a certain condition. And so people can perceive you as a certain person, and then so can get work done or help you to, reach whatever outcome you need to have. But I think the real authenticity, the pure presence, when you tap into that, people can feel that. There's no way you can fake it. I don't know about you, Luca. And then for me, I really when I'm around certain people like you or someone else, when they're really being authentic, there's no hidden agenda. There's nothing else behind that. I can feel that. And I'm naturally, my energy is, kind of being attracted to that kind of energy. But when someone is sharing something and then you can almost feel there's something else that's hiding behind that sharing, my energy is alert in a way. It's interesting, keep going, I would be curious to know what's going on, but then, so I think it's funny. Someone come to me recently and asked me to coach her on personal branding. And I said, no, I don't coach people on personal branding, because you being yourself, and that's your personal branding. And that's nothing that you can just being coached on, because there's so many strategies out there and saying, you should do X, Y, Z and do all those personal branding stuff, and then to get you to be the leader that you need to be. But no, we are all naturally whole. We're all whole. We're lovable. I think that whole talk track, the strategies is almost fades this void that we all have. It's we're not enough, so we need to do something to become enough, which is, that was a very interesting topic that you chatted about.
Yeah, but the funny thing, I always stress, I always say about the difference between vulnerability and authenticity. I try to be, and hopefully my team can confirm that, I am all over to be authentic. If I am authentic, you know what to expect from me. I expect hard work from you. That's fine, but I expect to be authentic. I will try to say, I don't want to fool you, just because I will treat you as I would expect to be treated myself. Mm-hmm. There is no point of pretending something. That's why, let's share a vulnerability story. What's the point of sharing a vulnerability story? Absolutely not. And then when people tell me, thanks for being vulnerable, I go mad and say, no, if I share something, I share something because I feel in that context I can share something, and I feel like being myself, and I feel like probably I can be of help of other people. But not because now there is the culture that as a leader, you need to be vulnerable, because you are not a real leader if you need to pretend or to fake something. if you don't feel it. And to your point, I mean, eventually people can even follow all the career ladder, the career vertical grow, whatever. At the end of the day, when you go to bed at night, or when you wake up in the morning and you look yourself in the mirror, what do you think? Are you happy about yourself? I mean, there are so many people, and that's fine. If they're happy, they reach their goal. I prefer to be authentic, and it can work or it can't for in given environment, and that's fine. But I don't want to pretend to be who I am not.
Yeah, I like that. Because, I think the word being vulnerable, I think it came from Brené Brown, some of her work on how vulnerability can get people to connect with each other. And then that it's also based on the whole American culture where people have trouble being vulnerable with each other. But I think to you, and maybe to you and to me for sure, like I grew up, like I have this urge just to be authentic. So that was never an issue for me. Like being vulnerable was not even a work for me because I naturally just share and like, a bottle of water. But I think for people who have trouble, because I think for people, for example, Jake, my husband, he grew up in an environment where he was being blamed for when he does things. So it's tough for him to even share, be vulnerable because he did not want to, it hurts. Like, when he shares something and then people blame him or judge him, it just hurts. And that brought him back to the childhood story where he was just being blamed for things. And literally, he and I were just talking about, because when we did a grocery shopping the other day, I noticed that Jake tends to buy a lot of cookies. It's not healthy, all sugars, and he just buys them. And I was making fun of him. I'm like, hey, you're just so unconscious when you go do grocery shopping, buy all those unhealthy stuff. And then he finished the whole bag within like 10, 15 minutes. And he was like, no, I'm consciously buying them. When I was a child, like when he was a child, his mom have this requirements, basically saying like, you should not eat so many cookies. It's not healthy for you. So he feel like he did not have freedom to eat all the cookies. Now he has the freedom to eat all the cookies he wants. But then talking, like I was thinking about your story and his story, like the intention, right? Like his mom just want him to be healthy. So he hold on to the cookies, lock them in the drawer. But the child told him the story as, mom has all the power. I don't have the power. One day I'm going to have the power to buy all the cookies for myself. And now this is a day I'm just going to buy all the cookies. So I think that the power of storytelling and narratives can really change how we take actions, consciously or not. So, and another thing you talk about the AI technology, how it's not helping us to be conscious of the addiction. Like the other day, my friend and I were just talking about how like, not a porn addiction, but like how sometimes on Instagram you scroll, and then sometimes like random video just get pushed to you, like will be like, women with their butts, like bikini and all the stuff. And so my friend and I was talking about that, like people do not have the intention to look at that kind of contents. But then when you scroll, and then like, technology push you in, and it's almost like a devil sort of like action to lure you into a different path. And then you stay on there for hours. And to me, it's actually, I don't know. To me, it's like, I see hope because I feel like the technology is pushing people on a certain age. Like once we touch the age of ourselves and really start to, like, to your point, if I look into the mirror, I don't like myself. And then that would trigger me to start to take actions. Otherwise, it's like frogs in lukewarm water and it's feeling comfortable. So that's just my thoughts on this, like how technology and us playing with each other in terms of like how we're going to evolve as human beings the next few years or not. It's also a decision that we get to make, right?
It is. Unfortunately, we as individuals, we don't control the technology evolution. A few people can do that because they have the environment, they have the capabilities, they work in those companies that they can. That's why I think in the past, years ago, there was even some attempts from some big tech companies to look about the attention span or something like that, how we can make people more mindful. There was an effort, but eventually being mindful, remove notification and things like that does bring any money to anyone overall. In general, I mean, it's not sad to say whatever, it's a reality because we live in a capitalist world overall. So we should develop our own awareness to understand the balance. Because again, we are humans. we are solicited by activities around us, by desires, by wishes, and that's totally fine. This is part of us being human, and that's okay. The thing is that when things are too much unbalanced, if I order 2 pizza per day and 2 ice cream for 1 week in a row, 10 days in a row, that's not good. For me, that's not good. I have the awareness. That's not good. I don't know if someone else in the world would say that that's good, but that's their choice. For me, that's not good, right? Yeah. So awareness is the first step. The second step to what we discussed before is like, okay, how I can have the drive, that internal drive to get out, to break the circle, to get out of it. And then again, I did a few things. What I mentioned, like over the last few weeks, I lost 30 pounds again because I gained a lot of pounds. Now, over the last few days, again, I had some relationship hiccups, disappointment again, work situation, disappointment again. And sometimes, unfortunately, triggers come always together. Why that? I don't know. I don't necessarily believe in God, but if there is a superior entity, why triggers all come together? I have so much things. And again, this is also part of us being human. There are so many things all together. So you need to take a breather, focus on yourself, do meditation, rely on a coach, whatever you want, but you need to be grounded and understand what you want to do. And if for a couple of days you would like to eat spicy food, or I would like to eat pizza, that's fine, as long as it doesn't become some unhealthy behavior.
Yeah, you know what's funny when you're just like talking about the universe and God, and then what if universe is really pushing you, Luca, to the edge, so you can get rid of this, like, you know, this dilemma once for all. Because what happened to me was like I had a lot of like health scare, and until last time I felt I really had a stomach cancer. I did like, you know, a bunch of tests on the row, and then I was so scared. I'm like, God, like that was the universe pushing me on the edge, like saying, Sha, like if you don't take care of your health, treat your body. I actually had a meditation right after the test, like the CT scan. And then I had this vision where someone was telling me, Sha, treat your body as a clean vessel, as a temple, like just take care of it. And that was like the moment I decided to really just prioritize my health. That was the moment when I really know this is really important to me. Nothing else matters. Because what's the whole point of like working hard and doing a lot of things, but I have a shitty body, you know, like I don't get to enjoy any of that stuff. You're talking about addiction. I think that anything can be addiction. Working can be addiction. I was so addicted to work at that time, you know, like, and that caused more stress. And feeling shamed about eating too much, that adds an additional layer of, you know, the stress to the whole thing. What did you try in the past? Like what helped, what worked, what did not work? I think on top of this, what we're really talking about here today is really dive a little bit into the self-awareness, right? Like, you know, so
the funny thing is that I didn't do anything necessarily crazy. When I lost like 110 pounds, and again, it was like in 8 months or something like this. So it was even a short period of time. I almost reached 300 pounds. 300 pounds is like 137 kilos. I'm European, so I work with kilos, but I made the translation. I know that what means in pounds. For me, it was like, the point is that again, even for me, that time it was a relationship. And then the point is that if you are already in an unstable state of mind because of personal reason, you might not take the things that happen in other dimension of your life in the way you would take if you were not unstable in the first place. So even work, I didn't take work in the right way. And again, sometimes, I mean, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not blaming any of my past managers or whatever. Again, intention, like my parents, right? Intention were not bad. But sometimes we don't put ourselves in the shoes of other people when we interact. This is like emotional intelligence 101, right? When we do things or when we say things. So for me, I watch a picture. I look at the picture. I was with a friend of mine, and I was huge. I said, look, this is like 3 people, it's not one. What I did, well, before being convinced myself, I just walked like 10K steps per day. This was basically basic thing. During the pandemic, it was the only thing that I could do. No gyms, nothing. There was nothing. Drinking like about slightly less than 3/4 of a gallon of water, which is like around 2.5 liters, let's say, of water per day. And I was trying to eat like healthier, let's say, small amount of carbs, only the one that your body needs, good fat, because people think that fat is bad. Fat is not bad. Fat is the energy that you need. If you have more, it's bad. Sugar is worse, honestly, than fat. But culturally, we don't believe that. And there is a great movie, which is called The Sugar Movie or The Sugar Film. It's a documentary from an Australian guy. I keep watching that, like I watched it the other day, once per year, more or less. Explain to you basically how bad sugar might be for you. Now, even when you don't have sugar in coffees or anywhere, usually I don't. I might eat sugary food, yes, that's for sure. I try not to add additional sugar. I don't add additional salt because salt is something that it's a cultural thing. It's something that we developed with the humans, us being humans. It was originally, we used salt to save food. So to make sure that food was not going rotten, basically. But it's not what we need. It's just a matter of taste. I did basically that. Another thing that I did, there is another movie again from an Australian. I don't know why Australians are all about food, but there was another documentary. It was called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. It was about a person who was on the prednisone, I think, which is the cortisone drug. And then basically was told, look, you have a few years of life because you are too big, your liver is not working anymore and things like that. So you're about to die. And this person did a juice reboot. So it was drinking only squeezed fruits and vegetables and some proteins given by nuts, simple, not salty nuts. And this is something that I did a few times in my life, like 2, 3, 4 weeks, juice reboot. And I can give you probably the name of these movies and things in case you would like to attach or to add somewhere for the people that are listening. I didn't do anything crazy. The thing is that the food addiction is the symptom, is not the cause.
Yes.
So if you don't do something to address the cause, which can be meditation, mindfulness, journaling, having a coach, having a therapist, that they take care of 2 different aspects of human life. They're not the same. In case people don't know, coach and therapist, they're different. They're both valuable, but they're different. You need to be aware of the cause as well a little bit, because you can cure the symptom for limited time, but it will come back if you don't have, like it happened to me multiple times, if you're not able to address the root cause.
Yeah, I agree. I think, in our conversation today, you were able to dive deeper into the root cause. To you, it's like you trace all the way back to the childhood, the void, the emotional distress. And so it's not like you have a rigid system to work out and then, have someone to cook for you and that can solve the problem. Because if you are able to even eat healthy, and then that void, you might want to fill that void with something else. Could be, overworking, different things. So it's really, I think, identifying this as an issue and can really help us to heal deeper on a deeper level to me. But then the first, like you're saying, first step is really to be aware this is an issue that I wanted to work on. I wanted to commit to this. What do you think makes us human being? I know it's a quick term.
At the moment, I think 2 main things. One is emotions, the way we comprehend the reality beyond us, basically. And we make it ours. That's why it's emotion. And again, emotion is in general. Happiness, joy, despair, fear, everything. And the second one, which can be related or not, is like the experiences, what we lived. We are probably among the living beings, and again, I'm not a biologist again, disclaimer, but probably we are among the one with more consciousness, right? That can develop things and can even learn from the past, if we want, though. And probably, actually, I would add the third one. So emotions, experiences, and intentions, I think. Intention is what you can decide to learn from the past or not. It's your choice. So you can keep doing the same mistakes or hack the same behaviors, and probably you might have the same outcome, whatever. But yeah, intention, experiences, and emotions.
Yeah, I love the last one, intention. I think that's actually a new answer. I asked the same question to every single guest. This is actually a new answer I get from you. Intention. I'm not surprised. We're both coach. It's so important because I think in today's world, we talk about goals a lot, we need to hit certain goals, but I guess it doesn't really serve us that much if we don't have a clear intention as we march ourselves to hit that goal. So It's so important. Like, even talking about this emotional eating, like what's the intention in working towards getting rid of it, or like, moving towards a better space. For you, it's you want to feel healthier, connecting with the people. I have a theory. When you're talking about the first one, emotions is what makes us human being, and also connecting the dots where your emotional eating traces all the way back to the childhood where you feel like you were abandoned by your parents. I wonder, like, if we are able to connect on an emotional level, if a little bit deeper with friends, even the time when you have disappointment and work or with friends, if we're able to connect, I don't know, in whatever way, could be through communication, working together, whatever, and then would it help us to get rid of this food addiction, the emotional eating? Because I think to me, it just makes expressing my feelings. It's that the way to use the food to fill that void is me suppressing my emotion. I was not really allowing my emotions to come out to the surface. So it's easier for me to just hide in my own cave, eating. So this is my theory. I would love to try it out myself to see how it works. But any other thoughts or last word or well, as a coach, what would be one question you would want the audience who have shared similar inner journey and similar challenges in life to ask themselves at this point of time, maybe to get them into the next mile on their journey?
So when we think about unhealthy behaviors, the way we have been defining them today, and again, I mentioned like food, but it can be like, I don't know, gambling or porn or whatever, drugs. But also you mentioned something that is really important and people think is not unhealthy, but it is. Being a workaholic. Mm-hmm. I was a workaholic for many, many years in my life. This is a symptoms. Try to understand the root cause. And the root cause in my case, and it's honestly, we share the same thing. You try to get the best grade for your mom, mom to be able, you did great, whatever. I did the same. I wanted to have my manager praising me. Oh, you're great, you're the best, or you did this great, whatever. I was working 24/7 for many, many times. So the question that I would like to ask anyone that's dealing with let's say unhealthy behavior, it can be addiction, it can be something else that they know, they already started thinking that it's not healthy. And again, it should be an awareness that they should develop on their own. They can ask support to a therapist or to a coach or whoever, but it should be, they need to reach that awareness. No one can force any awareness on anyone. Right. But the question that they should ask themselves, in my opinion, would be what I am gaining from this. What's for me? And because I know when I keep eating, when I click the button to order caviar, I'm not able to find a good reason what I'm getting for that. And this will help and help me actually developing that awareness on. And that's why I talked to my therapist. Look, I really think I've never been diagnosed with a food addiction per se, or food disorder or whatever. But I don't think this is healthy. When I think about, let's stop it. It's going to be last time. Tonight is going to be, I know that I'm ordering, but tonight is going to be the last time. I swear myself. Tomorrow I will start with a clean slate, whatever. Why I'm doing that? What's in for me? I will ask myself those questions.
What was your answer to the question for your situation? What did you gain in just clicking on the button and ordering more food?
For me, was like, May was pretty miserable for me. Unfortunately, work-wise, there were some changes and things like that. Also the situation, my family situation, to live in Italy, some health issues and things like that. Thankfully, now things seems as much as possible under control. For me, was just a way I know it's bad, I need to stop it. But I really need to release my tension, release my stress. And eventually this helped me. It didn't do that immediately, but after a few times, then I knew that it was not good. And then I started realizing that a few weeks later, I needed to go back on track. Yeah, even writing, actually, even if people do journaling, people think that journaling is boring, or journaling is from, I don't know, kids, or using a really probably a word, a denotation that I don't like. It's kind of girly, something like this. Absolutely not. Journaling, and again, I haven't done that much honestly lately, because journaling something helps your awareness. So if you can reach awareness with other ways, it's fine. It's just another medium. Journaling allows you to process the things that you have in your mind, because you need to write. You need literally to write what you think, and you will process while you write it.
I like this approach. Like I was talking to a friend, like for people who normally talk a lot, journaling helps a lot because, they process the information differently in different part of the brain. But for people who don't talk normally, talking to your friend, talking it out loud, that actually helps them to process things differently. Or for people who do both, like, sometimes for me, it's painting. Like when I paint, sometimes I get into a different ideas and insights about myself, and meditation helps too. One thing I wanted to mention, like it's not an easy journey. Imagine this trace all the way back to you're 7, 8 years old, like it's been over few decades. So I think part of it's really give ourselves grace, compassion on the journey. Because like, if we blame ourselves for doing it again, that's not helping us to get to where we wanted to be. It's additional layer of stress, right?
Oh, yeah. And also, thanks for pointing this out. Again, my other theory is that, and probably this is kind of clear to everyone, but we can't change the past. We can only work for a better future.
Right.
No matter what we experience, this is the past. We live now in the present. We live in the now. So what I can do now that makes me feel happier, fulfilled or more fulfilled, and things like that. We can't blame our inner child. Our inner child or our kid or our 7-year-old me or whatever use that mechanism to defend themselves. I was using food even when I was in the restaurant because I didn't want to suffer. For me, it was a way to remove the suffering from abandonment, disappointment, and from the feeling of abandonment, disappointment, and things like that. So it's a mechanism to protect yourself. And I can never blame my 7 years old, my kid, my younger self. I can never do that. If I do that, I'm negating who I am, and I can't.
Yeah,
I can't. That's part of me. That's why experience makes ourselves. If I don't like that, I can work on improving it. I have the power, but I cannot blame my 7 years old. My 7 years old me used the tool that he had at his disposal to do his best.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. It's almost like if you blame the child, then you are actually abandoning yourself, your inner child, for not giving the child love. And then again, you're checking the box. You're like, I don't deserve love. And then, so God, I love this part. I think this is actually the goal of our conversation right now. Like it's acknowledging what the child needs and acknowledging what we can give to the child: attention, emotions. Like, as a child, it hurts when that feeling pop up, right? When our parents who we love the most were not here for us, it hurts. And so, of course, we grab on whatever that's convenient for us to feel better. But to me, the journey really leads me to where I allow myself to fully feel the suffering, the pain. And that's when I know I'm strong enough. I don't need the food. I don't need anything to really get me to feel better. Like I know when I can have the capacity to feel the suffering and pain fully, and I don't depend on anything else. So, but that was my journey. To your point, everyone's journey is different. And then, I love how you're talking about past is the past. Let's focus on the present. Kind of also connects to the differences, the thing that you're talking about earlier, the difference between coach and therapist. Because I think a therapist help you to dive back to the childhood and past, and coaches really help you to focus on the present and where you want it to be in the future. So I think that's a major difference. A lot of people don't know, but I think it's worth mentioning since we're talking about this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also an awareness that I developed myself through the coaching course and things like that. Is like, you might need both, and that's totally fine. And again, spoiler alert, a coach doesn't have any answer for anyone.
Yes, I love that.
The coach will ask you questions, and then you need to develop that awareness, and you need to develop your commitment, your buy-in to do things and to change things. This is like, I would like to go to a coach because I would like to get promoted. Yeah, the coach will never get you that. The coach will never promote you. The coach will ask you questions, and so if you think about that, you better go to your manager to ask to be promoted versus.
That's a good point. I love that. Yeah. It's so true. Like the coach might actually, maybe towards the end of your coaching relation, maybe that the coach might help you to realize promotion is not what you wanted, because we're really dive a little bit deeper. So there might be some surprises coming up in this coaching relationship. But I do notice, like you and I both share in this coaching journey. It's so life changing. I didn't have access to it when I was in China. Like now I'm here. And I encourage people to work with a coach if you do have a goal, if you have a commitment or, a better version of yourself you wanted to tap into. I think it's worth the investment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, people still don't think that. Like the same for therapists. The thing that I would like to say while we are probably close to the the final moments is like what I usually say, you can lie to everyone except yourself, right? So be gentle with yourself in general. Try to allow yourself to be authentic. Be authentic doesn't mean that you are weak. Be authentic means just being human, being yourself. If there are things like we talked today about addiction, from food we expanded to any other type of addictions, make sure that you are honest to yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're thrilled or happy or glad to share with other people, with friends, with coworkers, whatever, do that. Don't feel that you need to. Just be yourself. I don't know about the statistic about overeating. I didn't look for that before our podcast. But for sure, there are a lot of people that have any form of addiction to cope with some stress situation, right? Make sure that you are aware of that. And if you don't like it, make sure that you can commit and to change it. You might even like it, but try to understand why you're doing that. Because I was the first in my class at elementary school and middle school, at college, not because I like to study. I like to study because I wanted to show my mom that I was great. And ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing, why you're working 24/7, why you're overeating and things like that. If you're fine with that, that's fine. But don't lie to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And like honesty comes with authenticity as well. I think when you are authentic with yourself, you can feel it in your body. So that concludes our conversation today. Thank you so much for sharing everything. I can definitely feel your authenticity because that's something recently I started to feel. It's not about teaching certain concept. It's about us embodying that. Like if it's authenticity, we wanted to show people, and then be authentic yourself because other people can feel it. And that's how you teach other people to be authentic. But it's not about doing the lip service and saying things. So the whole conversation, I feel just, like the authentic you, Luca. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me. It meant really a lot to me. Hopefully, if I can even help one person to start developing that awareness, even if if we reach that goal together with today's podcast, I would be already satisfied. That would mean really a lot to me. And again, if any people would like to talk about this, again, I tend I am an open book. I can be more closed book, whatever. But I tend to be open and honest. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If you wanted to co-create a transformational journey for yourself or your team, go to xiaohurley.com. Let's connect. And if you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe and share the show with your colleagues and friends. I'll see you next week.